to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on PL Express. Kay Murray and Janusz Michallik coming to us today from lovely Poland. But we will still be talking a lot of Premier League, and Janusz is going to give us some insight into a Polish player. A Polish player. Don't worry. Oh, yeah. Janusz knows quite a lot of things that are going on in Poland right now, and all will be revealed in the days to come. But we won't push him or press him on that. Do not worry. We're going to talk about that big game yesterday, Arsenal taking on Manchester United, beating them in that clash. We want to talk about Erling Haaland. And with the fact that Janusz is away, and because the Premier League's back and we're kind of halfway there, we thought we'd talk PL superlative. So we're going to talk about the biggest disappointments, the best of the year so far, everything that we've liked and seen so far in the Premier League. But we will start with that massive game between Arsenal and Manchester United. How pivotal was that in the title race for you, Janusz?
Well, when it's all said and done, it may be, right? Because we keep testing Arsenal Football Club. We're trying to convince, I don't know if others, but ourselves, that they're capable of doing it, right? And every time we throw something at Arsenal, they prove that they're for real. And I think that's what we saw. This was, again, Kay, it was something special, right? Because how many years have we talked about Arsenal, that they're missing that grit, that they're missing leadership? How many times have we mentioned Patrick Vieira, who now is in the Premier League, a manager? How many times we've talked about, big-time players, the spine of the team, the resilience of the team. I don't know about you, but I saw everything in that. I mean, there was a point, it was a tremendous game to watch, and I thought Manchester United deserved something out of it. And who knows, maybe they should have won the game. There were times. But, Arsenal did something that I for years didn't think was possible. I mean, even with a young team under tremendous amount of pressure, because let's be honest, we're all waiting for them to fall apart, aren't we? Every show, it's that little bit of, even myself, as you know,
Maybe
yes, it's that they're to lose, but there's always a but. And, maybe we ought to stop it, because that win late, winning at home. And I don't know if you watch the atmosphere, the body language, the way the players are reacting with the club. I mean, Arteta does that all the time. But there is a bond, isn't there, between the players, between the manager, and most importantly, between the team, the manager, and Arsenal fans. And that's always a dangerous combination. When I say dangerous, in a good way.
All right. So I'm going to go there, don't you? It was Nketiah's goal that won it for Arsenal. And I know you've been divided when it comes to opinion on this player. Can we change your mind on him?
When he scored that goal, you were the first one that I thought of. Here I am in Warsaw, Poland, we're trying to figure out, well, we know who the new coach may be for Poland, because they just spotted him landing in a private plane. But anyway, that's another story. And I thought, okay, I'm like, oh no, he scored. Didn't I just say that I don't know exactly what I said, but the bottom line was that I'm not sold on him yet. And that's just the fact that he's young. He's kind of doing a pretty good job replacing Gabriel Jesus. But then, I saw the two misses. There was one significant one. And I know sometimes you're unlucky, but no, I'm going to need to see if he can become, I'd say, 15, 20 game goal scorer in the Premier League. And I still have those doubts, but I was happy that he scored. I wasn't going to backpedal here. Still not convinced, but hey, great for Arsenal.
But he put in a great performance for them in this game throughout, right?
He did. Well, look, here's one thing. Arteta has shown patience with the young players, and he continues to do that. You've mentioned, they obviously about a Polish player, Jakub Kiwior, who's played in the World Cup every game, I think, just about every minute. Maybe he was substituted once, but a young player in Spezia. And of all teams, Arsenal, because I know he had long conversations with Mikel Arteta, and because Mikel Arteta likes to develop players, likes to develop young players in general, right? So I was thinking all of that, and yes, could that happen with Nketiah? Maybe when a coach believes in you so much in such way that he may become that. But I still think that Arsenal will look for even a bigger name. I'm not, Gabriel Jesus is going to be back, but he can function in different positions as well. I still think when it's all said and done, they're going to have somebody, I don't want to say like Haaland, but that type of number 9 where you don't doubt that they're going to score goals consistently.
But what actually does happen when Gabriel Jesus comes back then? You've alluded to it there.
He plays. Look, I still think that Arsenal as a team functions better with him. Although I think if Nketiah keeps scoring goals, then Arteta is too smart of a manager just to take him off. I think he'll let him play if he keeps scoring. But Gabriel Jesus, for me, gives you a little bit more between the lines, stretching players, stretching defenses, pulling center backs out of positions. I still think he's better for Saka and Martinelli.
All right. Well, we'll see if that happens when it comes to it, because it would be tough, wouldn't it? If you've been doing your job and doing everything right, and then the player that's injured comes back, and then you're back out of the squad.
Two schools of thought. The one that you and I just mentioned, but I also remembering as a player. I mean, when you get injured, you don't want to get injured, right? And I think you deserve the benefit of the doubt, in particular because I mean, Gabriel Jesus was playing very well. So I think just because he got injured, he deserves that shout. That first opportunity, maybe when Nketiah doesn't score, maybe if Arsenal drops points, that's usually what happens, right? But I think he deserves to be back in the lineup.
All right. Let's talk a little bit more about some Arsenal players before we do move on to talk about Manchester United and what we saw from them. What did you make of Bukayo Saka on the day? He did so much for his side. In fact, we pulled up a stat yesterday on our live show that it was it was his 7th Premier League goal, but he's the 3rd Arsenal player to score in successive Premier League matches against Manchester United since Freddie Ljungberg and Thierry Henry. That's some company to be keeping, Janusz.
Oh my goodness, so much loving for Arsenal. I almost feel bad. And then Manchester United, I'm going to talk about them too in superlatives to a degree. We have been, right? But why not? I mean, they're playing good football, both teams, and I think we were entertained. But Saka looked kind of unplayable, didn't he? At his age. I mean, we've seen that, but yet I think. See, what makes a difference is to do it, and he's shown it for England and for Arsenal already. But in the games that matter, against big opposition, against a team that's been on a great run by themselves, right? Such an important match, not just for the table, but psychologically. For me, this was a game where I think Arteta is going to have on that blackboard, whatever board they use there, all the time, because this was that grit, this was character. And I was watching Saka, and that was unbelievable. I mean, he's the best English player, isn't he? I mean, my goodness. I mean, everything, beautiful goal, but I just think his confidence, the way he engages defenders, that really was. I think we've seen some special performances from him, but like every player, sometimes you have to rest a little bit. Maybe you hide to rest, but he was on. I mean, every time he touched the ball, I thought, wow. I always think that something dangerous can happen, but that was, for me, that was a special performance.
Well, England are very lucky, actually, because I know you're in Poland and you've been watching Premier League for us, but Jude Bellingham had himself a day in the Borussia Dortmund game. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be interesting. I wonder if we'll be talking about him in the Premier League very soon. One player we will be talking about, you've already mentioned him, Jakub Kiwior. He was up in the stands for this game, Arsenal's new defender. Tell us a bit more about what they are getting in this player.
Well, I mean, look, because it's a weird kind of move. When you think of Premier League, when you think of massive clubs like this doesn't happen by chance. This is not that just, the agents get together and try to move on a player. Yes, they've got potential, or he's got potential, but I think they have to look at him. And the reason I feel somewhat excited, although to be honest, during the World Cup in the last few games, I was watching them against, help me out because I'm here. I think it was Atalanta when they lost. He didn't look great in that game. That was a big loss, wasn't it? And so I can't say that he's at his best right now, but he's young. What's he, 19 years old? And, left-footed center back, which is very important. When you look at it, Arsenal having Saliba and Gabriel, and one that feels very comfortable in combination play and bringing the ball out of the back. And look at Arsenal, look at Arteta, look at the way he likes to play. I mean, again, the combination play from Arsenal at times was breathtaking, really players moving in the right directions, one-touch football. And yet, in a football like this, and I'm sure he's learned that from Pep as well, you have to have those players being comfortable on the ball to get engaged, not just to defend, but get engaged in a game, come into the midfield. Let's not forget, because probably Arsenal fans, maybe they've read it since, but when he moved to Spezia, Thiago Motta was the manager, and he played him as a defensive mid. I think that helped him. This is not a position that he should be playing, But it's also not bad to know that he's very much capable of playing that position, because Thiago Motta is a good manager. He's no longer there, but he's recognized that for a number of reasons why he should play there. And, if I look at Xhaka and Partey, it's not like there's a lot of strength in depth. Sambi's there, but you have a player that could play two positions, but he's a left-footed center back, very comfortable on the ball. Let's be honest, cost peanuts. You can bet on potential. He's a Polish international that's got a World Cup under his belt. Ain't bad.
It's not bad at all, is it? So now we just turn our attentions to the fact that there's this run of games against Man City still to come for Arsenal. What's your gut telling you right now? Obviously, they're going to meet in cup competition. That's very soon. Then we're going to get those two Premier League games that we've waited so long for. What's your gut telling you now?
My gut tells me that Arsenal are good enough. And that's important, because sometimes you may not be lucky enough. You can be good and still lose, right? We've seen that on numerous, because I had an issue with that first. Forget the points, because season's so long, we can say who the favorites are in the beginning, but it doesn't matter. The season is too long, injuries, loss of form, or anything, right? Psychologically, you can get burned out because the World Cup, who knows? So I doubted that Arsenal were good enough to win it. Now I know that Arsenal are good enough to win the Premier League. So for me, in order to convince myself, not anybody else, but myself, I needed to know that first. That's there. But look, Manchester City are still capable. This is not, 8 points? It's not impossible. It's not impossible. Manchester City are not in a good run of form. I mean, by their they set some standards that even Pep Guardiola is pretty open right now and pretty critical of his team and his players, which I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but he is trying to light a fire under his own players. And many do need it, by the way, even the last game they won. So I'm not calling that race for sure, because I think Manchester City are capable of winning this league. But with every game, Arsenal, because they're playing extremely well. So again, kind of on the fence, maybe, but the fact that they're good enough is special in itself.
But did that game and the resilience they showed against Manchester United, Arsenal, add towards what you're saying now, in that you say that they are good enough?
Absolutely. It's theirs to lose. Yeah. I mean, look, 8 points. I mean, and we can, I know I've been on the fence a little bit, but 8 points is a lot. And when you're playing well, you say to yourself, they can continue doing that. So look, I mean, anybody, you don't have to be a fan of Arsenal, which I'm not. But I think even an Arsenal fan will tell you that you couldn't possibly expect this level of football. I mean, it's at times, as I told you on the previous show, it's you mentioned some of the names from the past and the Invincibles and all of that. I mean, how different is that? I mean, they have players that are doing exactly the same thing. Okay, maybe no Thierry Henry, but when Saka plays like this, almost looks like him, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's 5 points now, but like many people, you're giving them that game in hand. Yeah, it's 5 now, but they've got the game in hand. Steve McManaman did the same yesterday. No, he's assuming they're going to win their game in hand. I sometimes wonder with a game in hand, though, Janusz, if everybody just makes the assumption, okay, that's another 3 points, but it just looms over you, knowing that there's that game still to play and the pressure starts to build.
It's not even that. But see what happens to me when I'm in Warsaw and I forgot everything. Just didn't have time to look at every.
Don't worry about that. It's a fact it could be 8 if they'd played the same amount of games.
The game in hand for me is a funny one, because I've always believed it's not how you win, it's when you win. And whenever that game comes up, because now with all these changes and a World Cup, obviously there's a number of games that need to be played in between all the competitions. I still want to see what happens to everybody. I'm not talking even Arsenal. I mean, they're doing tremendously well in Europe, right? I mean, they rotate players there, top of their, they were top of their group. They have that luxury, of course. But, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, say, to Manchester City or anybody else, because their goals are different. I mean, let's face it, Manchester City's goal is to win the Champions League. I don't know when, but every year they should be one of the favorites. So, yes, that's more of that. What kind of mentality you're going to be in, right? Is Arsenal, before the game that is being played, have they won the previous game? Are they still on the roll? If not, is there going, the pressure mounts. So yeah, games in hands, you still have to win them, and I apologize for giving him 8 points. See, even more reason to sit on the fence for me.
See, he's starting to love Arsenal here, guys. That's what's happening. He's even giving them those extra 3 points now. You mentioned that Manchester United maybe could have got something out of this themselves, yet Ten Hag afterwards described it as a reality check. Why would he say that?
Because he's smart enough. He knows that he's playing with house money. I think he's extremely proud of his players and of himself, because his turnaround is maybe even more impressive than Mikel Arteta, right? Because Mikel Arteta, this is his, really maybe third year kind of, previous 2 seasons, eighth, last season, just outside of the Champions League places. So he's had time. He's been doubted, and so has Ten Hag. If you remember when he first came in, there's some big losses and bad losses, but he's managed to turn around not just the team, but the mentality of the entire club, the players, the fans, and Old Trafford all of a sudden seems to be Old Trafford again, and so I think that he's done maybe even a better job in a shorter period of time than Mikel Arteta. But I think he knows that this team is incomplete. He knows that even though he's done some good things, probably by his standards, you can't all of a sudden be this perfect Manchester United team. And he knew that a time like this will come. It just always does. It always does, because there are imperfections still at Manchester United. I guess I could say that about every team, but yeah, I'm not surprised that he said that.
Casemiro missing, did it prove to be a factor in the end then?
So I knew this one was coming. Of course, not having a player like Casemiro always makes a difference, right? Because we wouldn't know it, but we've seen the way he's played, his leadership. I think he would have helped. Maybe they would have seen through this game, right? Who knows? But to be fair, I wonder, and I didn't hear it. I don't know if Ten Hag has said anything, but I thought McTominay played well. I thought he played well. It's good for a manager to know, because the danger on a team like this, it's with Saka, Rashford, or Haaland, players in form, is that everybody concentrates on that, as if you don't have those players, you have no chance. And that's the worst thing that can happen to a team, because players sometimes think that way too. I remember even when I was a little kid, when we had a great player that would score goals, when he's not there, you feel that. You just do. I think everybody that's played a game at any level, I'm not talking about highest level, at any level, when you're missing a star, which he is, it never helps when you go away to play against Arsenal, who are in form. So you can't say, no, they didn't. But I thought McTominay played well, and I think it's good for him, it's good for the team, it's good for Ten Hag to know that McTominay can come in and do a decent job.
We must talk about Erling Haaland then. He has got more goals than 9 Premier League clubs this season. He got another hat-trick, this time against Wolves. We put out a question yesterday as to whether he's on his way to becoming the best striker ever in the Premier League. And I know there have been some reservations, not towards the player from you, Janusz. We know what he offers, but how he can affect the way that the team play. What do you think of this?
I said it. It's a little bit different. There's no coincidence that Manchester City as a whole, and look, again, that's not his problem. His job is to score goals, and he does that in such a way that I didn't think it was going to be that easy. I really didn't. I mean, this is what he's doing is unbelievable. 25 goals. I mean, I remember our first show. You asked me, I don't know if it was 40 or 45.
I kept putting it up.
And I think I was nice to you, saying, no, whatever I said, because, I try to be nice, but I thought you were crazy. But look, here we are, and I think you're going to be right. I think he's going to get to 40. I don't know how, but 25 goals in how many games you said? 18, 19? I
think 19 games, right?
I mean, think about that, and there's still 5 points, possibly 8 points behind. I mean, that to me seems crazy, and maybe it's inexplicable, maybe. How do you figure a club like Manchester City that was doing fine without him, was winning Premier League in tremendous style, now has a goal scorer that scores 25 goals already this season? We're barely over halfway, and still somehow, but again, that's not his problem. You look at João Cancelo, loss of form. Look at Bernardo Silva, loss of form, right? You look at De Bruyne even from time to time. I mean, there are issues. You look at, 5, 6 central defenders who are in or out. which doesn't help any team, right? Because that's one partnership that I always felt that should be constant, right? And you can rotate them, but should be constant. John Stones, remember, he was playing tremendously for England, and Manchester City got injured at a wrong time. So there's something to it, but I don't know if I'm willing to put it down to just Haaland. But I mean, when you watch Manchester City now and you watch them before, clearly it's a different way of playing.
He's just a different player as well, isn't he, Janusz? Have you ever seen anything like him? Because we say it because we're getting used to him scoring, but 25 goals is usually enough for a striker to win top scorer of the season in most leagues. I remember when Ruud van Nistelrooy came to Real Madrid. I think it was 25 goals he scored in his first season, and he finished as Pichichi, and that was amazing. It's 25 goals already.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to compare him. I guess we should know. When was that? When he scored like 13 goals? Was it under 17 or something like that World Cup? I remember. My goodness, why did he score so? He should have some mercy. But maybe that was the first indication of the how special he was. It was. It just we didn't allow ourselves to think that way because the player was so young and probably not many people watched that game anyway. But he's got a combination of everything, and obviously he's proven already in Germany that he's a goal scorer. This is not like out of nowhere he starts scoring goals. He's got pace, he's got size. He looks to have the character, right? I mean, looks a lot more mature than you should be, right? Physically, and the beauty is that when I watch him, that smile on the face, I think is genuine, right? And even if he forces it, that's okay. I like that, right? He doesn't seem to me that he feels pressure, and that's the most amazing and the most important point in any sport for me. That if you're good, show that you're good, and if you feel pressure too often than not, then you can't be playing at that level. It just won't work.
Yeah, it's unbelievable for his age, just how unflappable he is in those situations. So let's get to our PL superlatives. We said they'd be coming, and obviously we'll revisit these at the end of the season. But who's been your biggest surprise so far, or what's been your biggest surprise?
No, see, that I felt that was the worst because it has to be a little bit of a repeat. And I don't know how to explain, I know logically how to explain it sort of, but it's difficult between Arsenal and Manchester United. And I just mentioned that because longer process by younger players that are coming through in a beautiful way for Arsenal. But yet I think the biggest surprise for me is Manchester United, because it's been a mess of epic proportion. Even this season, even when Ten Hag came in, I mean, everybody remembers the doubts, the Brentford games, the Ronaldo. As much as I thought that Ten Hag is a good manager, we doubted, well, Eredivisie, is that good enough? Truly, Ajax, okay, we've seen them in Champions League, they're capable, but there were so many buts. And I just think that the situation around the club was never healthy. Glazers and everybody else, and so many years now since Sir Alex Ferguson left, where it's just we can't recognize the club. And so for me, the turnaround now is, I think, the biggest surprise. And how tough he was making decision about Ronaldo and Maguire. That to me impressed me quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good one you've picked as well, because it almost got to the feeling with Manchester United that we were just expecting everything to not work for them again. And obviously, this time
I was.
Biggest disappointment then?
I have to go to, Liverpool Football Club, I think. I mean, it has to be. You could go Chelsea easily and maybe be an easier choice. But I think, I have to look at what happened to them with everything, with Roman Abramovich, with the war, and quickly change of manager, new identity that we see right now, spending a lot of money, which is not unusual for Chelsea, but different profile of a player. I just still think that Liverpool, maybe I was naive because the time always comes when it's difficult to motivate yourself to win everything. I think Manchester City a little bit showing little cracks, but obviously they have a deeper squad. But I somehow thought that Liverpool are going to be contending for the Premier League. That was my call ahead of the season. So I have to own up to it because what's happening is not really good at the moment.
Best player, Nketiah, right?
Yes, for sure. No, I'm staying with Erling Haaland. It was for me between Saka and Erling, but at that age, just goals themselves. That's what he's getting paid for. That's his job, and we know how expensive that can be, right? To find a player that will give you something special, something consistent. Because I'm pretty sure if he had 15 right now, I think that Manchester City would have been fairly happy with him. So no, Haaland gets it for sure.
Best newcomer could be the same, right?
Yes. I forgot about that category. Give me some ideas. I forgot about it. Look at, I'm going straight. Usually I have my notes, but
Ed Derby. We could get the coaches in here. Roberto De
um,
Zerbi. We could give some
best
coaches.
new, and this is maybe, I don't know if statistics prove that. I know exactly who it is. I just needed to compose myself a little bit here. If I'm honest. And statistics may not prove that because we're talking player, not a club, right?
It's
Because I
your
could go
choice.
for both.
It's your no. You can pick anything
Okay.
you want. Player, manager, club, and it's your choice. Stats don't matter, Janusz.
So my choice is Palhinha and Fulham, because when I watch him, he doesn't get enough ink and he doesn't get enough talk. It seems to me, right? And maybe I get it, right? I mean, it's Fulham. Again, probably most thought that again, Yo-Yo maybe. I mean, I could throw Marco Silva in there too, but is that a category? Maybe I'll save him. But look, Palhinha does something incredible. I watched him before that. As you know, sometimes we had at Sporting. I thought he was a good player. When he came to Fulham, I thought it was a very good move on their part because for some reason I actually thought that he can find a better club or bigger club, I should say. But in the center of the midfield, I mean, all around, and we talk about the Casemiros of the world, right? Who kind of can be box to box and can tackle, can anticipate, can score from time to time, can set up goals. I think he's having a tremendous season. So let's stick with him.
It's a funny thing because there's a lot of these that could be the same name all through. The next one is best newcomer. Best young player. Best young player.
Oh, yes. I mean, I had, but that's going to be boring if I mention Holland again, right? But I mean, why should we pretend? Oh, let's give it to somebody.
Okay.
I mean, can we give it to Saka actually?
I think so. He's a young player. You just said he's England's
Oh,
best.
young. Okay, the young. Yeah. Okay, you're confusing me all these categories. Now I don't even know. No, let's give it to Saka. Let's give it to him because we gave it to Haaland. A tough call because if we're honest, numbers don't lie, but his numbers aren't bad either. And in terms of the most dangerous player and their weapon player that can not only score, but as I've said, great in combination play. It's got assist in him. Let's go with Bukayo Saka.
I like it. And let me just ask you something quickly about this, because I think it was Cesc Fabregas talking at the weekend saying what a great, well-rounded individual he is as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But you see that off the pitch, but then on the pitch, he has a bit of bite and you can't mess with him either. And you wouldn't expect that,
I think it's one of those that you have to have. Everybody's heard that story, right? That it doesn't matter about your personality of the pitch, and I think you and I and everybody else listening knows players that are somehow, and the moment they step on the pitch, it's just like, who is this person, right? So I don't know him personally. I've seen many interviews, and that confirms what everybody's saying. It seems that way. But sometimes people put on an act. I don't believe it's that, but yeah, it's better to be that way, right? It's better to be kind of show that character on the pitch than off the pitch, at least from my experience.
Okay, so there is a category, as you were asking earlier, for best manager. It's our last category. Who are you going for?
I really want to give it to Marco Silva. I really do. I really do. We've had a taste of him, didn't we? I mean, when did he first came in? Was it Hull and then Watford, maybe? Watford, I think. And then we went to Everton. And we all know that Everton's not so easy. At the time, we weren't saying that maybe, but it's been a mess for a little bit as well. But I always felt when he left that he was a good manager. Sometimes you can be good and still not succeed because there's so many things that go into a football club as we know it. But I always felt that there was something about him as a manager, and what he's doing here is again exceptional. I could say, we could talk about Tom Frank because it's a similar situation. But I just think that I like the style of the team a little bit better than Brentford. I don't have anything against it the way they play in because he's their job was, let's not forget, their job was to stay in the Premier League. Clearly, number one job, and look where they are. And I just enjoy the way Fulham plays football. And the story about Mitrovic, I think he got the best out of him, right? Scott Parker, remember, that was a very defensive-minded team. I think Parker, kind of his personality was a little bit, never smiled. And he was just like, I thought the atmosphere maybe wasn't the best for them to show us the best version of themselves. But with Silva, I think that team can play. And I also think that he can continue to develop them and make them play even better. He's got that in his locker.
All right. Well, we're very happy to have you once again with us, Janusz, especially the fact that you're coming from Poland this week. We know you alluded to a little secret, so we look forward to finding out what that is. Who was on that private?
All I like to say is, because that's, a lot of people know, Poland obviously has to pick their manager for, those European championship qualifiers in a couple of months. And of course, how press is in Europe, sometimes a little bit different than the one that you and I are used to. But everybody's in the airport waiting for some sort of a plane. And it's confirmed that Fernando Santos just flew in. Obviously, Portugal's manager, no longer. And there's a press conference tomorrow. So look, many things can happen from now into it. But I think the fact that he's here tomorrow, you'll probably hear that Fernando Santos is the new manager of Poland.
Yes, if we put 2 and 2 together there, we will get Fernando Santos as the new manager of Poland. Thanks so much for the insight, Janusz. We'll see you again next time on PL Express.
Thanks, Kay.